So I haven't come out with a RAM guide for Ryzen 5000 yet, and that is because basically the BIOS is fairly broken, or the AMD AGIS is fairly broken. So above 3800, even though it does work sometimes, it doesn't work others. And if I go over that and then try to go back down to 3600, it's basically just broken, very inconsistent. So AMD and Asus need to fix that before I do that. So today we're just going to be running at 3800, but I'll show you these really nice timings and settings that I've got set up. So I've spent pretty much all this week tweaking the memory, and you can see I'm using all of these bottom settings on auto. 1.6 volts for the DRAM voltage. You can ignore the CPU because that's going to be a lot higher in a minute. That was just with the air cooler keeping it cool. So what I've gone with in the end is 13, 13, 13, 26, 38, 4, 8, 16, 4, 8, 12, auto, 3, 3, 240, and then auto on those, and then we've got 9, 6, 12, and then all of these down here are 1, which gives us a nice little performance boost, and obviously the 1T. Now for the gear down mode and the power down mode, to make it so that these numbers up here stay odd when you boot into the OS, you actually need to have these on auto. So when I load the profile, these are both disabled, but if I tried to boot at those settings straight away, it won't post. So what I have to do is I have to change these both back to auto and then disable gear down mode first and then power down mode second, otherwise I get an F9 on the BIOS thing over there. I'm also just going to put the CPU fan on turbo. Yeah, it is, right, okay, that's fine. So yeah, we're just going to boot into Windows. I'm going to be doing 3D today, so I've got the RTX 2080 Ti here, the MSI Trio Gaming X, and we've got this is on the Patriot Viper Steel. You can see the model number there, and we've got the 5900X this time rather than the 5600X, which I did 3D last time. And with these memory timings, I haven't got any of the memory disabled, so we've got the full 16 gigabytes. I'll just bring up Task Manager and show you a second. So there you go, you can see we've got all 16 gigs enabled, and I've also GPU's drivers installed in there. I've also got, don't know why Microsoft Edge has managed to get onto the desktop there, got the Zen timing tool thing. So yeah, this one. So you can see the settings there in the OS, as well as the CPU settings. Obviously the CPU is only at 4 GHz at the minute. That was because I was testing these timings on air cooling, but I'm going to be running the CPU at 4.8, 4.85 depending on how it's feeling today, and it should give us some monster scores in 3D Mark, which I'm going to be going through the whole suite, all the way from Time Spy Extreme and Firestrike as well. So yeah, I'll get the CPU sorted out and then we'll go from there. So I just want to show you the latency here. So we've got 52 nanoseconds, the read and write around 59,000, but that's because obviously we're still only at 3800. So yeah, there you go on the Ada 64. I'll just show you a quick Geekbench 3 as well, and then we'll get on to the 3D stuff. I've got the CPU at 4.8 now as well. So yeah, there you go, quick Geekbench run, 9,500, basically anything over 9,000 is pretty good. Just bring up the Zen timings thing again. So just to confirm that I'm still running the same timings. So there you go, over 9,000, well over 9,000. And yeah, we'll get into some 3D stuff now. So I think I've got MS Afterburner here, and it's already detected the card, which is good. So for now I'm just going to put the voltage and the fan speed up to 100%, and we're just going to do a Firestrike run at stock to start with, and then I'll show you that score and we'll see how much higher we can get with overclocking the GPU. So here's the first score with the GPU at pretty much stock. All I did was max out the power limit and the voltage there. So there you go. So we've got 35,641 on the GPU score, 38,000 on the physics, and 11,600 on the combined. And to give you an idea, this is my previous best score, which you can see there is 30,000, and that was with the 3900X. And I got 32,000 on the physics score, so this is getting 6,000 higher. And obviously the graphics score was higher because this was maxed out, and that was with the CPU at 4.5 GHz on the 3900X. So we should quite easily beat that with this new CPU. So I'm going to start overclocking it now and see how high it will go. I'm going to start just by putting 1,000 plus 1,000 on the memory, because I know this card can go a lot higher than that. So we'll see how much difference it makes just maxing out the memory first. Also not running any LOD yet either. This is without LOD. I'll add the LOD in later. So there we go, decent improvement, up to 36,500 on the GPU, still 38,000 on the physics, and nearly 11,400 on the combined this time, so just over 30,000. So I'm going to start overclocking the core now. So we'll start at plus 50 and work our way up from there, and see how it does. Max temperature on the GPU so far is 46 degrees Celsius, so this MSI heatsink is obviously keeping the card pretty cool during a Firestrike test, which is good. So that's gained us another 500 points on the GPU score and almost 500 points on the overall score as well. So only 100 points off what I did with the 3900X, and we haven't even got LOD or anything yet, or maxed out the card. So I'm going to go up to plus 70 on the GPU core now, and I'm also going to go up to plus 1100 on the memory, and we'll see what we get. So there we go, we've now beaten the old score overall quite easily, just without any LOD or anything. We're at 37,400-ish now, getting up to 12,000 on the combined, and still obviously I haven't changed CPU, so 38,000-ish there. We're going to try plus 90 next and see what happens, see if we can squeeze a little bit more out. Peak temperature's still only 46 degrees, and boosting wise it is going to about 2040 megahertz on that last run, 2070 at some parts. So yeah, the GPU is getting over 2000 now, which is good. So the GPU score went up, but the CPU score went down quite a bit there, not sure what happened. So I could probably just run it again and get a higher score. So we're going to carry on with the GPU anyway. Going to go to 1150 on the memory and plus 100 on the core. So I'm kind of hoping to get over 31,000 with this setup. Obviously once I add the LOD in, might get even more, but we'll see, maybe 32,000, but it depends on the CPU and whether it can keep up with the FPS numbers that the GPU's spitting out. Yeah, so we're getting only small improvements in the GPU score now. The CPU seems to have derped out. It's probably Windows doing something in the background. So I'm just going to raise it to 4.85 now, and we'll see what happens, I guess. I'm not going to change the clock speed of the GPU, just go for this CPU. So for some reason at 4.85 GHz on the CPU it keeps crashing while loading the system info, even though it's kind of strange because it can run X265 1080p on overkill mode at 4.85, but it can't run Firestrike. So there's something to do with the system info there which is making it crash, but it runs fine at 4.8. So instead of doing that, I'm going to add the LOD. I'm going to just show you the settings for NVIDIA in Spec. So we've unlocked LOD here. First thing we need to do is change the super sampling mode to AA replay all mode and apply that. And then the other thing you want to do is a negative LOD bias here and allow, and we'll start with 2.5. You don't need very much LOD for Firestrike normally, and you can just leave that open while it runs and it should be okay. We're in GT2 here and you can see what the LOD does to the textures. It just makes everything kind of low res and blurred. So this is 2.5. I'm going to do 3 and then 3.5 after this just to see where's best. You can see there the CPU usage is only 93% now. And hopefully in the physics test it will have recovered now. We can't really see, but you can see up there it's getting about 120 FPS again. For some reason it was dropping down to like 110, 115 on those last few runs when I was overclocking the GPU earlier, but now that it's rebooted a few times it should get 38,000 again. You can see there we've got a big boost in score from using the LOD. We're up over 31,000 now like I wanted, and you can see the CPU's back up to around 38,000 points, which is good. So now we're going to go up to 3 on the LOD and apply that and see if it makes any difference. Score might go up, might go down. It kind of depends on the CPU and GPU combination how much LOD works. Normally for Firestrike I find around 3.5, around that area is best, but for other benchmarks sometimes you want like 12 or 15 or 18, which is a lot more, but I find Firestrike keeping it lower is normally better. You can see 3 LOD actually reduced our score a little bit there. We'll try 3.5 anyway, just to check and make sure that 2.5 is the best. So as you can see with 3.5 we've got the best score so far, even though the CPU score's gone down 2,000 points for no reason. It's pretty good. Can now overclock the GPU a bit more. Let's go to 110, and I'm kind of hoping the CPU score will come back up again as well, because it's pretty annoying that the CPU score keeps going down like that. Don't know why it's doing it, because it should just stay fairly consistent. As you saw for the first few runs it was pretty consistent at 38,000, but I'm pretty sure I had this issue with it dropping down a bit with a 3900X as well. So it might be something to do with the 3D Mark software, maybe it's Windows doing stuff in the background. who knows, but you can see it's very blurry now. So I'm on 3.5 LOD. So yeah, 3D Mark is just being extremely inconsistent. You can see the GPU and CPU score were fine that time, but the combined score has gone down like nearly 3,000 points. So the overall score's tanked. So I'm literally just going to run it over and over until all three of these scores are basically good now. Now we've finally got all the scores aligned, so you can see 38,000 on the physics, nearly 12,000 on the combined, and nearly 39,000 on the GPU. You can see we're at 4.8, 1.35 volts, same timings as before, and we've managed to get all these scores to align. I don't know what was going on with the combined and the physics tests there, but yeah, got 31,600, which is pretty decent. I'm going to continue overclocking the GPU a bit more and see what we can get up to. We'll try 120 on the core next, but I suspect it will crash, and so once it crashes we'll move on to Firestrike Extreme. I've been running this for like an hour and a half now probably, and you can see I'm getting over 200 FPS in GT1, over 39,000 on the GPU score, but the CPU and combined are so inconsistent. The highest score I managed to get was 31,910. I've managed to bump the GPU up a little bit more, so plus 150 and plus 1190. But I'm going to move on to Firestrike Extreme now. So there we go, we've done the first run of Firestrike Extreme. My highest best score before with the 3900X was 18,001 exactly. So 19,000, big improvement there, over 1,000 points more. But obviously I'm going to keep running it a few more times, see if this combined and physics score go up. You can see on the graphics score I got 19,500, and that should stay fairly consistent, but these should be, well, that should definitely be 120 or 38,000, and the combined I reckon should be around 50 FPS again. So I'm just going to keep running it until I get a decent score basically. But I reckon it should be about 19,100, 19,200 once all of these are lined up properly. So I've just run Firestrike Ultra about 500 times, and as you can see I've managed to get it to get 38,000 on the physics score, 9,744 on the graphics, and 5,500 on the combined. So I'm almost at 10,100, but I've run it so many times now, it's insane. Still at 4.8 on the CPU obviously, and still the same memory timings and whatever. So these are the GPU settings that I'm using at the minute. I've run it a lot of times at these settings, so it doesn't really make a difference going up, other than crashing the PC basically. Yeah, I'm just trying to get as high score as I possibly can, but the physics and combined are just so random at this point, it's just incredibly annoying. I'm literally just sitting here the same clock speed, running it over and over and over and over and over again. Same with Firestrike Extreme as well. I can't even remember what score I got in the end, but it's just a massive pain. I think it might be something to do with the fact that Firestrike can only handle up to 16 threads, and obviously this is a 12 core with SMT, so it's 24 threads. Yeah, so you can see it's been a random number generator. Physics scores way down for no reason at all. I'm just gonna turn SMT off and see what we can get with SMT off quickly. So there we are, 1212. You can see there. Just going to run normal Firestrike and see if this improves or makes the combined more consistent basically, and see what kind of physics score we get. I'm guessing the physics score is going to be lower, but the combined score might be a bit higher, but we'll see anyway. Is it any better? I don't think it is. I got 30,910. You can see the physics score's way lower, it's only 31,000. But the combined does seem to be around what the top end of what it was at. However, I might be able to overclock the CPU a bit more now that it's not got SMT enabled. So I'm going to go for 4.85 and see if that works now that we're not running SMT. CPU might clock a bit higher, maybe 50, 100 megahertz. We've actually broken 31,000. It passed at 4.85 perfectly fine. So I guess we'll try 4.9 next and see if that works as well. It does have the same issue. You can see in the combined test it only got 9,000 that time. Yeah, even though it's still 12 cores, 12 threads, as you can see there, but it's now at 4.9. 4.95 worked. It still seems to be going up, but I guess we try 5 gigahertz next and see what happens. But man, I doubt 5 gigahertz is going to work, to be honest. Yeah, so actually I was getting 31,900, not 30,900 before, so it is actually slower. You can see there it was getting higher in the combined, so all we've done really is just lower the physics. We'll give it a go at 5 gigahertz just for the lulz, see if it actually works. Got a little bit of a boost on the combined and the physics score from going to 5 gigahertz. Just confirm that with the CPU-Z. Did run the whole thing at 5 gigahertz, 12 cores, 12 threads. Pretty impressive, but obviously the score is still not as high as when I was running 4.8 with the SMT on. I don't know what's going on here, whether this is broken or what, 'cause really I don't even know how it's still running, to be honest. It shouldn't be able to run 5 gigahertz. There we go, it's gone off. That's it. That's what I was doing at 4.85. So yeah, 5 gigahertz is the max with the SMT off. It's pretty quick actually, but not as fast as with SMT on. And we're going to be doing Time Spy next, and that'll need the SMT on. Back to the 12 cores, 24 threads now, 4.8. We're going to run some Time Spy, see how it goes, see what kind of scores we can get. Hopefully the Time Spy CPU test isn't a random number generator like the Firestrike one was. We've just finished first run of Time Spy with the 5600X. You might have seen last weekend I got 14,900, and you can see with this monster of a CPU, 4.8 gigahertz, we're getting 16,000 on the CPU score now, as well as the GPU score. So that's a massive improvement over the 5600X. I just started at slightly lower clocks than before, so we're at just under 1200 on the memory and 160 on the core. I can go up to like 1200 on the memory, but because Time Spy is a bit heavier, I just left it at 1165 for now. But I'm going to do some more runs and see what it can get up to. Might be able to hit 17,000, but I doubt that. So I think this score's a tiny bit higher now. The only thing I've managed to do is bump the memory up a little tiny bit to 1180. If I go any higher than that, it pretty much crashes all the time. Obviously on the CPU I'm still at 4.8, so I can't get much higher than 16,800. Nearly 17,000 on the GPU score and 16,000 on the CPU score, which is pretty nice. Oh yeah, by the way, the GPU still only hit 50 degrees max, so the cooler on this MSI card is a beast. You can see we're getting 8,008 on the GPU score and almost 9,000 on the CPU score, which gives us 8,133 overall, which isn't too bad. The GPU settings are just 1165 on the memory and plus 160 on the core. Topped out about 50 degrees again, so not too warm. So I'll see if I can get it any higher, maybe tweak the memory a tiny little bit, but we'll see. Don't think I'll be able to get much more than that. Can't get any more out of times by extreme. Pretty much as soon as I put either the memory or the core up, dies straight away. In GT1 sometimes it gets about halfway through, so we're gonna try Skydiver next instead. In Skydiver we've managed to get 84,823, got over 124,000 on the GPU score, which is crazy. 37 on the physics and 58,900 on the combined. That is pretty impressive. I might try and run it again, see if I can run it a little bit quicker, but that score is pretty crazy.